Just paddles here.
All right, guns. All good now. First aid here. Weapons here.
Reloading. Reloading.
Weapons.
I'm reloading.
Ooh.
The witch is getting mad.
Chainsaw
You
here.
guys ready?
Crowbar.
Sounds like a boom. Ow!
Spitter.
Hot stuff coming.
Reloading. Reloading.
Reloading.
Watch your ass.
I'm reloading. Watch out! Look out! Hey! Hey!
Shoot that big mother. Target.
Reloading.
Ammo here!
Ammo up here.
Got it.
Guns here.
Ammo here.
Reloading!
Weapons over here.
Stop it. Got him.
Heads up!
Incoming.
Reloading.
Come on, come on! Get up!
There's a pipe bomb here.
Reloading!
I'm reloading. Charger! Move back. Back it up. Bill, no! Bill! Reloading.
You got problems, boy. Deep down problems.
Hey! I've got a plan. Stay there. I'll be back. Oh, God, no, I won't. Reloading.
Smoker, here. All good now.
Nice. First aid kit.
Ammo.
First aid kit here.
Ammo. First aid here.
First aid kit here!
Ammo here. First aid kit's over here.
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about.
Ammo here. Watch my back.
Cover me.
Grab some first aid.
Pipe bomb out!
Got him.
I'm down!
No!
Heads up.
You think I'm just Get your ass
We should probably go.
Thanks. Oh yeah. Charger! Jockey!
Jockey!
Hunter! Jockey! Jockey! Hey, ammo here. Watch out! Look out! Hunter! Charger! Look out! Boomer!
Reload!
Hunter!
Ready?
Smoker! Oh, shit!
Reloading!
Ammo here!
Ammo here!
Oh, Jesus.
First aid. I'm reloading. Grenade! Look out! Reloading.
Jockey!
Hunter!
Hunter!
Reloading.
Spitter!
Got it! Got him.
Come on, let's move!
Nailed it!
Will you knock it off?
전부 There's no doubt that technological innovation has the potential of creating a more unjust, unfair, inequitable world. But it doesn't have to be that way. Empathy is a critical ingredient to succeed in the world and to also lead and manage in a very complicated, changing, dynamic world.
Yeah.
We have to be able to listen to each other, to build bridges, to find consensus, to find common ground. 80% of the biodiversity in the world is controlled by indigenous people, local communities. So why aren't we listening to their voices? When you listen to and center the voices of people in this country, for example, who are closest to the communities, and I'm speaking of indigenous people, local communities, they actually can help us solve the problem. They actually provide and can contribute to the solution.
Hi, friends and fellows. Welcome to the...
Told her about a new program that President Lyndon Johnson was initiating, and the program was called Head Start.
Right.
It was the first summer of Head Start in 1965. The idea of Head Start, which was funded in part by the Ford Foundation as a research project, was to provide early childhood education for low-income urban and rural boys and girls. I was in the first class, and it was the beginning of my journey, my love of curiosity. I went to public schools in Texas, and with you share the University of Texas as my alma mater. We are proud Longhorns, Gita.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate after graduating from law school at the University of Texas to be recruited to New York to one of the largest Wall Street law firms, Cleary Gottlieb Steen in Hamilton, where I spent.
People who have.
People want.
My name is.
We are trying.
I'm Sean Carroll. I'm a theoretical physicist and philosopher at Johns Hopkins.
We are trying.
My name is.
On a brain scan, we can actually see that effect. Okay, it's been published. What happens is when a man sees a pretty girl, blood drains from the prefrontal cortex and he starts to act stupid. Actually, you can see that in brain scans. Anyway, these are some of the books that I've talked about. The God equation is what I do professionally for a living. I work in something called string theory, which we think is the theory of everything, the theory that eluded Einstein, the theory of everything. When I was 8 years old, something happened which changed my life entirely. When I was 8 years old, all the newspapers ran a picture of a scientist's desk. And the caption said, "A great scientist could not finish this book." So on the desk was a book, and it said, "The greatest scientist of our era could not finish this book." Well, I was fascinated. What could be so hard that a great scientist could not finish? Why didn't he ask his mother? Why didn't he go to the library and just look up the answer? So over the years, I would go to the library, and I found out that this man's name was Albert Einstein. And that book was the unfinished theory of everything. An equation no more than 1 inch long that would allow us to, quote, read the mind of God.
I'm reloading.
Well, we think today we have it. It's called string theory. I'm the co-founder of one of the main branches of string theory, string field theory. But it's too difficult to solve with the human mind. We have the equations, but the equations are so powerful, we cannot solve them analytically. So that's why we're interested in quantum computers. Because quantum computers may be powerful enough
Watch
to
out!
solve the theory of everything, to give us an understanding of why we had the Big Bang,
while we're gone?
why we have the universe,
Watch out!
why are we here? We may be able to answer that question with a quantum computer. So let's now begin at the beginning. In the year 1901, in the Mediterranean Ocean,
Molotov's over here.
divers found a shipwreck that dated back 2,000 years into the past. And they found this thing on the left. It was encrusted with coral. They thought it was a piece of junk. But then they looked closer. By removing the coral and the debris, they realized it was a machine. A machine that shouldn't exist. A machine that was 2,000 years more advanced in its time. It was a computer on the bottom of the Mediterranean Ocean. So scientists came to look at this thing, x-rayed it, and then reassembled this device. And they realized, oh my God, 2,000 years ago, the ancients created a computer. It is the most advanced piece of human machinery in thousands of years. It tracks the motion of the Earth, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, predicts eclipses. It gives you a handle on the universe. Who created this? We don't know. But we think it was supposed to be a coronation gift for Julius Caesar. But a shipwreck took place, and it wound up on the bottom of the Mediterranean Ocean. So for the next 2,000 years, we roamed in darkness,
It's a witch.
creating analog
Don't.
computers,
Bill's here.
computing on sticks, computing on beads, computing on hand crank mechanical devices. We were rediscovering what the Greeks had already worked out 2,000 years ago. These are analog computers computing on gears, levers, and pulleys. And then, late in the 1800s, England was rising as a great maritime power. They needed to calculate interest rates. They needed to calculate navigational charts. They had to map the heavens so that ships could then navigate.
Guns here.
So, Charles Babbage, shown here, created a modern analog computer. But you needed somebody to program
Through
it.
this window.
So Lady Lovelace, a member of the aristocracy, was curious about this machine being built that could track the stars,
Watch
that
out!
could calculate interest rates,
Heads up.
that could calculate commerce, and she was the world's first programmer. She wrote a program to compute the Bernoulli numbers. Now, his machine, his final machine was never built. He ran out of money. He got involved with disputes. So later,
Cool.
many decades later, we rebuilt the machine of Charles Babbage.
Bill's here.
He's the father of the modern computer,
I got
father
a
of the
pipe bomb
analog
over here.
computer. This invention here, he never finished. And then we had World War II. All of a sudden, the Nazis were communicating with the far-flung empire with a code called Enigma. The Allies captured one of these machines, and they realized, oh my God, the Nazis were communicating with their war machine using a code that could not be broken. So what happened was they gave the job to a mathematician. Alan Turing, shown here on the right, was given the job to lead a group to crack the Nazi code. And there's even a movie about it called The Imitation Game. This group of mathematicians were able to not only crack the code, but they even began the process of systematizing the laws of artificial intelligence and computation. Before then, it was a question of amateurs, just dabbling in coding, dabbling in mathematics. What Alan Turing did was he codified the laws of computation through what are called digital computers. His Turing machine, shown here on the right, uses an infinitely long tape with zeros and ones, binary, with a processor shown in the middle, which takes a 0 and converts it to a 1 or another 0. And these rules on the left are the rules of computation. All of a sudden, this became rigorous mathematics. So Alan Turing is the father of artificial intelligence and the father of modern computation. And these are the machines that he built that cracked the Nazi code. Historians believe that he shortened the length of World War II by 2 years. World War II could have ended in 1947 without the work of Alan Turing. He cracked the Nazi code, and he created the Turing machine. But it's a sad story. Years later, his work was classified, and the people of England and the world did not know that he hoped to win World War II. In America, we celebrated the people at Alamogordo that built the atomic bomb. But in England, Alan Turing was completely unknown. And then one day, somebody burglarized his home. The police came, and they found out he was gay, and they arrested him. And they put him on trial, and they gave him a choice. One of the options was to be injected with sex hormones to basically feminize him. He grew breasts. He became very depressed as a consequence of these chemical treatments given to gay people who were gay, and he committed suicide.
Nice work.
He drank some cyanide. Actually, he ate an apple laced with cyanide, took a bite out of it, and we think that's how he died. Some historians say that that is the symbol of Apple computers. Apple computers, in some sense, could be dedicated, the symbol of Apple computers could be dedicated to the memory of Alan Turing, one of the greatest scientists of our time, the father of artificial intelligence, the father of modern computation, who invented the Turing machine, which is the basis of the second era of computation. The first era was analog computers, computing on sticks, computing on levers and pulleys and gears and turning the crank. The second is based on electricity, on vacuum tubes, and then transistors, to the point where now you can pack 1 billion transistors on a little chip. But then the question is, what's beyond that? What is beyond digital? Well, take a look at this. This is Moore's Law, which says that computer power doubles every 18 months. It's held, as you can see here, since World War II, and even before that. If you go to mechanical computers, analog computers, Moore's Law goes back over 100 years into the era of sticks and levers and gears and pulleys. But all
Laser
things
sights here.
must pass. This too shall pass. It turns out that transistors today, the smallest one would be about 20 or so atoms across. It's only a matter of time before transistors are 5 atoms across. At that point, all hell breaks loose. At that point, Silicon Valley will become a monument to obsolete technology. That's why Silicon Valley is desperately working on the next generation beyond silicon. Silicon technology is exhausted when we hit about 5 atoms across. At that point, the Heisenberg equation kicks in. You don't know where the electron is anymore, and it short circuits. Heat generation, leakage will kill silicon. So, Richard Feynman, after World War II, who was one of the people who helped to build the atomic bomb, said we have to go beyond digital computing. Mother Nature does not use digital. Digital is alien to Mother Nature. Zeros and ones, zeros and ones. Who uses zeros and ones, zeros and ones? Humans, but not Mother Nature. What Richard Feynman said was, nature is quantum mechanical. Nature believes in electron waves, the uncertainty principle, the Schrodinger equation. Look on the right. That's how a physicist looks at a hydrogen atom. We don't see a hydrogen atom as zeros and ones, zeros and ones. We see them as waves, electron waves, a new way that Mother Nature uses to do computation. When you walk outside, and you see the trees, the leaves, you see vegetation everywhere. Do they use zeros and ones? 0 to 1? Is that how nature creates the world around us? No, everything is quantum mechanical. And so Richard Feynman said, in a little matter of time, before we leave the digital era and enter the next era, the quantum era, when we compute on atoms. Now, it's not easy to compute on atoms, but that's the future. That's the way Mother Nature does it. And you have to have quantum computers to understand the quantum laws of life. So let's do an elementary understanding of why quantum computers work. Let's say that this is an atom. An atom spins. No. A spinning atom is like a magnet. So it spins up in the magnetic field, or it can spin down. So in this way, we have two ways of calculating an atom can spin up, or an atom can spin down. So that, in some sense, is the basis of our civilization today. Things can spin up, things can spin down. But in reality, atoms can spin in any orientation whatsoever. Now, how many more orientations are there than up or down? How much more complex is the direction of an atom if it can spin in any direction? You realize that if you can compute in any direction, you are infinitely more powerful than computing up and down and down. Not only that, but your states, when you rotate in any direction, you calculate in these states simultaneously. Now that violates common sense. Everything you've learned about the world says that you cannot be two places at the same time. Your parents told you that. You cannot be two places at the same time. Well, you like to prove it. Mother Nature is everywhere at the same time. Let's take a look at a maze. If a maze is digitized, the mouse on the upper left can make decisions to go left, right, to map out all possible paths. That's time consuming. How many paths are there? There could be hundreds, thousands of paths in a simple maze that a mouse has to navigate. At each juncture, the mouse has to say left or right. And how many paths are there? You got a charger. Hundreds, thousands of paths. In a quantum computer, the mouse surveys all paths simultaneously. Let me repeat that again.
That was good.
The mouse surveys all paths simultaneously to pick out the correct path. Now you may say to yourself, that's impossible. That violates common sense. Common sense says you go one at a time, one at a time. You mean to tell me that I can split in half? That I can be in many states at the same time? And the answer is, yeah. That's what we're talking about. You can be in multiple states at the same time. And that is the power of quantum computers. Not only that, but these atoms can talk to each other. This is called entanglement. And they can talk to each other faster than the speed of light. Of course, the information traveling faster than the speed of light is not usable information. But the usable information travels below the speed of light, and that is another reason why these computers are more powerful than any digital computer. Now, these things exist. We're not talking science fiction. And in fact, at the end of the month, I'm flying out to Santa Barbara for 60 minutes, and we're going to film. We're going to film the quantum computers that we're built in Santa Barbara. This is just one of several different kinds of quantum computers. Why does it look like a chandelier? These are cooling pipes. These are not the quantum computer at all. This is not really the quantum computer. Look at the very bottom. That's where the quantum computer is. The quantum computer computes on an object about the size of a quarter. Okay, the whole assembly is like the size of a suitcase. Everything else is cooling. Why? Because the slightest vibration, somebody sneezes in another room, Somebody burps, a car backfires, and it could upset the calculation. This is one of the reasons why this technology is not yet ready for prime time. But about 2 or 3 years ago, two groups created quantum supremacy. Quantum supremacy is the point at which a quantum computer exceeds the power of a digital computer. And that was reached by two groups, one in China and the other one Google. Quantum supremacy has been attained for certain discrete calculations. Now, an all-purpose quantum computer that you can program does not yet exist, but that's the race. There's a race now between the Chinese, Google, IBM. There's a race between all the major players of Silicon Valley, realizing that this is, quote, the next big thing. And how do the Chinese do it? The Chinese do it not with electricity, not with electrons, but with light beams. Light beams are polarized. Light beams, like when you take sunglasses. Sunglasses have striations on them, let's say vertical striations, so that the only light that enters your eye vibrates up and down. Light that vibrates to the side does not enter your sunglasses, and that's how sunglasses work. Well, that can be used to make a transistor, an optical transistor. And with an optical transistor, you can make a quantum computer. This is the Chinese quantum computer.
Shoot it! Shoot
It
it!
doesn't look like a chandelier. That's what the American version looks like. This is the Chinese version. Look carefully. What you see are mirrors. A mirror and a piece of glass can be a beam splitter.
Nick,
And what is a transistor? A transistor is a way, in some sense, to control the beams of electrons. Here, these are beams of electrons. So the leaders in this race. There's a race in the leaders, and the race are one, the Chinese, then in America, we have Google, IBM, Microsoft, everybody. Honeywell, you name it, everybody's jumping in the game. What's at stake? The world economy. The world economy today depends upon digital computers. They will eventually become obsolete. When, we can't say for sure, but Moore's law will eventually flatten out. It's beginning to flatten out already. You can see it. At Christmas time, Christmas presents are not quite as powerful as they were the previous Christmas. Now let me ask you a question. Would you upgrade at Christmas time? Would you upgrade knowing that your computers are just as powerful as they were the previous Christmas? This could send shockwaves to the world economy, realizing that computer power is stagnating in the digital era. So how will we communicate with a quantum computer? The quantum computer will probably be in the cloud. They probably need a lot of cooling systems to bring it down to absolute zero. But you will communicate using probably a digital access to a computer, quantum computer in the cloud. This interface could be in your wristwatch, it could be in your earrings, or it could be in your contact lens. This is internet contact lenses where you can access the internet by blinking. And if the internet is in your contact lens, communicating with the quantum computer in the cloud, who will buy these things? College students studying for final examinations will be among the first to buy internet contact lenses. They will blink, and all the answers to my exam will be right there in their contact lens. These contact lenses will also identify people's identities. Just by looking at them, who they are, what language they speak, it'll translate these languages. For example, let's say you're on a date, okay, and your date says that he's rich, single, powerful, and available. But your contact lens says, no, he's a loser. Child support payments. This guy, stay away from this guy's poison. Okay, very important that you know who you're talking to instantly. Let's say you're looking for a job and you're at a cocktail party And there's some very important people at that cocktail party, but you don't know who they are. In the future, you will know exactly who to suck up to at any cocktail party. Very useful. And these things actually already exist. One contact lens gives you a golf score, for example. Eventually, you'll download the entire internet on your contact lenses or your wristwatch or earrings or whatever. Now, what else can you do with this? As I said before, the greatest consumer of quantum technology is Mother Nature. You go outside, you see photosynthesis, you see leaves, trees, agriculture.
Yes.
You see the variations of life on the Earth. All of it as a benefit from the quantum theory. Nowhere do you see zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. Photosynthesis is a quantum process, taking light, photons from the sun, combining it with carbon dioxide, and creating oxygen and sugars. This is why you can breathe. This is why humans can exist. We are benefits of the quantum process beyond the capabilities of chemistry. In other words, we have to follow Mother Nature. And who else is interested in this?
Here.
D-Wave Technology in Canada is already marketing quantum computers. They're kind of primitive. They can only do minimization and maximization programs, but they're being sold commercially to the aerospace industry. Because the aerospace industry wants to create supersonic transport. Remember that we used to have a supersonic transport called the Concorde? It was a failure. Why? They had 19 technologies were as a consequence, the Concorde created a sonic boom so great that it shattered the windows of your house. So who wanted a supersonic transport overhead? United States. Now we have supercomputers.
Adrenaline shot
We
here.
can model the world to reduce supersonic transports now are hot business. They are the next chapter in aviation. In the future, you'll have breakfast in New York. You'll have afternoon tea in Tokyo. And you'll have dinner in New York again. So we're talking about a new era. A new era in space travel. Just last month, Elon Musk's moon rocket blew up on national television. But it is the future. We're talking about a reusable rocket that can go to the moon,
I ain't gonna leave you, man.
Mars. This is an It's called the Starship. The original name for this rocket, the biggest rocket
First
in
aid
existence,
kit here.
the original name for it was the BFR. B for big, R for rocket. And you can imagine what the F stands for. It's now been renamed the Starship. And Mercedes-Benz is interested in this technology to streamline their cars to increase fuel economy. So a lot of companies are jumping into the game. These quantum computers already exist. Commercially, they're not that powerful, but they will do maximization and minimization. And the solar industry is interested. We've been talking about the solar era for decades. Ever since you were a child, we were talking about the solar era.
On Ellis.
Why? People forget that Moore's Law does not apply for batteries.
Ammo up here.
Batteries are the weak link. When the sun doesn't shine, the winds don't blow, you lose acres and acres of solar cells. The problem is the battery. So supercomputers can now do chemistry in the memory of a quantum computer. Think about that. Chemistry without chemicals. We're talking about a new era in science where we can model molecules. You can't do that with an ordinary computer. An ordinary computer is powerless to model the intricacies of a chemical molecule. But that's what we're talking about here. Quantum computers can model quantum processes, including to create superbatteries.
We
And
Can you believe it?
this is the fertilizer industry. About 100 years ago, the Germans were able to create artificial fertilizer by taking nitrogen out of the air and creating factories, huge factories, to create fertilizer. This was the first green revolution. This is the reason why you're here today. 50% of the atoms of your body are made possible by artificial fertilizer. Let me repeat that again. 50% of every molecule in your body has been made possible because of the Green Revolution. But this revolution is nearing its end. They're polluting. They're inefficient. They use up 1% of the entire electric supply of the planet Earth. Let me repeat that again. 1% of the entire electrical output of the planet Earth goes into making fertilizer. We need a new way to do this. Let's follow Mother Nature. Mother Nature creates fertilizers for free. We have to have huge plants, gigantic plants, absorbing 1% of the total electric output of the planet Earth to create fertilizer. Mother Nature does it for free at room temperature. In other words, we need a quantum computer that can duplicate this process. Now on the left is the enzyme that makes it possible. We've sequenced it. Look at that thing. That thing on the left makes life on Earth. And we use that to manipulate that using digital computers.
Capping his ass.
Digital computers only work on zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. Look at that thing. There's no way that a digital computer can model that thing, except a quantum computer can. That's the power of quantum computing. Now let's talk about cancer. Let's talk about Alzheimer's disease. Of course, we've now been able to sequence the DNA of plants, animals, and what can we do with it? Well, not much. First of all, this is how we make the new next Thunderdome. Look at this thing. Thousands of petri dishes.
The hunter's got coke.
You put the germ in each one, and then you put a chemical in each petri dish. Hundreds, thousands of them. And then what do? You cross your fingers. You cross your fingers and hope and pray that one of them works and kills the germ. Now, think about it. This is stupid. There's no rhyme or reason to this. You just take all sorts of chemicals and then you apply them to germs, then cross your fingers and hope that one of them kills the germ. This is how we make it. That's why this is how we do it. In the future, we'll do it in the memory.
Let me heal your shit.
Down! The memory. Quantum computers will now do chemistry. Now, some people say, well, this is chemists out of work.
I owe you one.
Well, chemists who do not use quantum computers will be out of a job.
What was that thing?
Chemists who do use quantum computers will thrive, and they'll have jobs. That is the future of quantum
over here.
computers, to be used as a tool for chemists, biologists. And look at Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is incurable. And it means that people in their 80s, about 50% of them have dementia. I repeat, about 50%.
Everybody grab a weapon.
Molotov's over here.
Have some form of dementia and Alzheimer's. Why? Because of this. That's the protein that comes up the brain. Now we realize, using MRI and other chemical techniques, we now realize that this thing comes up the brain, but there are two types of this protein. One bends to the right, one bends to the left. It turns out the one that bends to the right, that's why we have. That's why your parents have. But the one that bends to the left does not. You can have gum all over your brain and not a one-to-one correspondence future, we may be able to
I gotta
separate
heal.
Heads up, dude!
and the right.
Thanks, Francis.
Alzheimer's disease, the disease of the century. And what else can we do with this thing? We can also use it to give unlimited power.
That'll
with-
keep you awake.
Mother Nature does not use coal for energy. Mother Nature does not use uranium for energy. In fact, the only place in the galaxy that we know of where uranium is used for
No pain, no gain.
planet Earth.
I must be about to
What
gain
does
some
Mother
serious
Nature
shit.
use? And we're going to create fusion on the Earth. Just a few months ago in California, we hit break even with a fusion plant. Why has it taken so long to create a fusion reactor? Because of the instability of the plasma, the hydrogen gas. With supercomputers, with quantum computers, we should be able to stabilize the gas to create an operating fusion plant to power the world, to save us from global warming. And what else can we do with this thing? This is the largest atom smasher on the planet Earth, outside Geneva. This is the Large Hadron Collider. On the right is what we do with it. What do we do with it? We smash atoms, hoping to recreate the birth of the universe. And how do we model this? With quantum computers. One of the first things we've done now is to put a quantum computer to analyze the right-hand side when two protons are smashed together in order to create a theory of the universe. In other words, the Big Bang, we think, shown here, will eventually be decoded by a quantum computer. And hopefully it'll answer the question, why are we here? As I said before, I work in string theory. This is the reason why I got interested in this. String theory is so powerful, but so complicated that the human mind is incapable of solving it.
Hey, can y'all watch
We
this
think
car while we're
maybe a
gone?
quantum
I'm
computer
reloading.
Laser sight here.
On its own. All right.
and the
Junior,
aging
Junior,
process.
don't worry.
Why do we have to die? Well, there's a second law of
Weapons here.
thermodynamics, which says that in a closed system, everything eventually gets old, falls apart,
We got
rusts,
guns.
corrodes, and dies. In other words, it's a law of physics that you have to die. But there's a loophole. There's a loophole in the laws of physics. Notice what I said that the second law of thermodynamics says that in a closed system, all things must eventually fall apart. The key word is closed. In an open system, where you have energy from the outside, technology from the outside, you can stop the aging process. You don't have to die. For example, in a car, where does aging take place in a car? Think about it for a moment. Where does aging take place in your car? The engine. Why is that? That's where you have oxidation. That's where you have That's where you have moving parts. The engine. Well, what is the engine of a cell?
Nailed it.
You now know where aging takes place. You now know why people actually die. Then the question is, can we go around the second law
Gotta hurry.
by being able to correct the because of wear and tear? That's how we repair humans. Why can't we repair humans the way we keep well, and let's say a few things about it. By the time you have a tumor, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, it could be too late. By the time you have a tumor, you have over 1 billion cancer cells growing in your body. 1 billion growing in your body. In the future, we will do it with a blood test. Already this year, for the first time in world history,
You ready, guys?
for the first time, the FDA
Hell yeah.
made it commercially available. A blood test that detects 50 different types of cancer.
Everybody grab a weapon.
Let me repeat that again. Up to now, there was no way to tell whether you had cancer or not until you found a tumor or some obvious symptom. By then, sometimes it's too late. Now we have a blood test. A simple blood test that can pick up 50 different types of cancers. In the future, this will be hooked up to a quantum computer to detect hundreds, maybe thousands of different types of cancers growing in your body. And where will we hook it up to? Your toilet. Ladies and gentlemen, this could be the cure for cancer. Your toilet will pick up enzymes, proteins, cells from your body fluid. Send them to a quantum computer that'll detect cancer and tell you that you have cancer maybe 10 years before a tumor. Ladies and gentlemen, this means that the word tumor may disappear from human language. You know, we don't say bloodletting anymore. We don't say leeches anymore. That's an old technology that is shown to be obsolete. George Washington, the father of our country, how did he die? He was bled to death. Bled to death. We killed our president because of incorrect knowledge. In the future, your toilet will be your first line of defense. Every time you use it, it will be picked up by a quantum computer and tell you, uh-oh, you have cancer. Do something. You have 10 years to do something. And who else is interested in this technology? The CIA. Anything this powerful, even though we don't have it commercially available yet, anything this powerful can break any known code. How do you break a code? Well, let's say I have a number that is 100 digits long, and I factorize it. I factorize it into two separate numbers. How long did it take for you to factorize an integer 100 digits? It may take a few centuries. A few centuries to do that.
No.
That's how we protect
Reloading.
the crown jewels of our secrets. Nuclear code, banking transactions, the crown jewels. How do we protect them? By factorizing long numbers. It takes centuries for a digital computer to perform this factorization process. Unless, of course, you know the code in which you can break right in. Quantum computer can completely reverse any known physical code. So who's interested in this? The CIA? I was in Russia 2 years ago, speaking at a conference in Moscow, and yeah, the Russians are there too. They too realize the power of what a quantum computer can do. And let me now end on a few notes. First of all, how does it work? It works because of the fact that you can be two places. That is the power of quantum computers. Let's say I take an electron beam and shoot it to two slits. On the right-hand side, you create a interference pattern. Because the electron beam will interfere with the other electrons to create a pattern on the far right. Okay? Got that? Now, let's shoot one electron. One electron through the double slit. What's on the other side? You think that it's just going to be one dot. One electron creates one dot, right? No. What you find is that each time you shoot the electron through the slit, an interference pattern shows up where it impacts on the screen. So in other words, the electron interferes with itself. Charger! How can you interfere with yourself? Because, in some sense, there is a parallel world. In other words, you are two places at the same time. This is the famous Schrodinger cat. A cat can be both dead and alive simultaneously. And this is the reason why quantum computers are so powerful. They compute in all possible realities simultaneously at the same time. And then the next question that everyone asks me is Elvis Presley still alive in a parallel universe? And the answer is, well, probably yes. There probably is a parallel universe where he's belting out hits still, because the universe splits in half, constantly splitting in half. Now, I'm going to wind up. I once asked the Nobel laureate to explain this in simple terms. Steve Weinberg said the following.
Reloading!
Imagine your living room where radio waves from many countries fill your room. Radio Moscow, Havana, whatever, right? All these radio stations in your living room at the same time. But your radio only picks up one frequency.
Goddamn,
Why?
grenade
It
launcher.
vibrates in unison only with one frequency, and that's why you hear only one station, not an infinite number of stations, one
Molotov's
station.
over
You got
here.
that? The wave vibrates in unison with your radio. Now replace the radio with electrons. All of a sudden, your living room is full of different types of atoms. The atoms of dinosaurs.
Charger!
The atoms of aliens from outer space. The atoms of pirates. All in your living room. But you have decoherent things. You cannot shake hands with Elvis Presley because he's vibrating at a different frequency than you. This is the reality. It's full of different parallel universes, but you only vibrate with coherently with one universe. And that explains the power of quantum computers.
Weapons over
They
here!
compute
Y'all
on
ready?
parallel universes. Where do you find them? Well, the first mention of parallel universe was in Alice in Wonderland, written by Charles Dodgson, Einstein talked about parallel universes in 1935, introducing wormholes. And now Hollywood has discovered parallel universes. The Oscars this year dominated. All the awards went to movies
Stop coming!
talking about parallel universes. Well, I'm running out of time, so I'd like to introduce some questions. So let me end on one final note. And that is, when I was a child, my role model was Albert Einstein. And my favorite Einstein story is this. When Einstein was an old man, he was tired of giving the
Adrenaline shot
same
here.
talk over and over again. So one day a chauffeur came up to him, and the chauffeur said, "Professor, I'm really a part-time actor. I've heard your speech so many times.
Over!
So why don't we switch places? I will put on a mustache. I will put on a wig. I will be the great Einstein, and you can put on my jacket and be my chauffeur." Well, Einstein loved it, so they switched places.
Over here.
Very difficult question. And Einstein thought, oh, game is up. And then the chauffeur said, that question is so elementary.
Shoot that big
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have time for a few questions.
Charger!
Not a general quantum computer, but more of a specific thing. Think like a GPU or TPU, like a very specific type of device, or it could be all could be generalized.
Well, I think we have to take a long-term view of this thing. That if you put a crash program on one specific thing, maybe you're putting your money in the It's a horse race. Each horse is pushing a different mode of physics. The Chinese are using optical methods, electron methods, but even then, there are different ways in which you can use electrons. And it's not clear which are the different forces that will work. It's not clear at all. Because they're all quantum processes. How many quantum processes are there? An infinite number.
Hell, man, bitter good!
So I think what you gotta do is gotta measure. You gotta realize that you gotta because it's not clear which one to each of these technologies is based on quantum, but each of them has a potential defect. You saw the optical computer. The optical computer does not have to work at your optical, which is great. But it's gangly. You saw how huge, how difficult it is to put all these mirrors in exactly the right alignment. So each of these methods has a plus and minus. and it's still too early to determine which one will eventually win out. Okay.
So not placing any bets yet.
Yeah.
Going as fast as I can.
Awesome. And then for the next generation of folks that are coming up and
Cover me!
Come on, close the door.
we
Grab it
live in a
first
world
aid.
right now where there's a
Yeah,
great
this here
plane
first aid is
spectrum of depth in science. We have everything from something that might go out as a tweet today from someone who has an opinion, all the way to academic peer-reviewed papers. And you certainly have been able to build a career across the gamut there. What advice do you have for some of our Googlers working with social platforms and online knowledge systems? You know, how do we go and elicit the next generation of Dr. Kakus to arrive?
Well, when we are in college, we specialize in a certain area. For me, it was quantum physics, for example. But then if you want to communicate with your mother, or you want to communicate with your girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever, you just get these blank stares. We have to understand the language of people. We have to be able to communicate with them because their lives are going to be dependent upon it. And that's how a democracy works. A democracy works only if the people that are voting can make rational decisions. And just remember that our future will be dependent upon voting for democracy and politicians. And politicians, of course, would love to get their handle to pass all sorts of stupid regulations on things that are totally irrelevant, but of course make them look good and get them reelected. So I think that, for example, on the question of chatbots and things like that,
Hey, I got first
I
aid
think
kit if
it
somebody
should be
needs it.
self-regulated, rather than having politicians come in, which means that we have to talk to people in the language of people. So what I try to do is, instead of rattling up names-based places, which go right over people's heads, I try to think about principles. And then you see that these principles are universal, and they can be applied for many different purposes.
Incoming!
For example, when I talk to biologists, I talk about evolution.
Fight a monster sound,
So
you
so
can
many
all.
different kinds of animals, right? And when I talk about, physics, I talk about, relativity, motion, talk about rocket ships, quarks, things that people understand. So we have to learn the language of people because they're the ones who determine our future because they're going to vote. They're going to vote to make sure that their interests are preserved. But if they don't know what their interests are, then they're in trouble.
We got goo coming!
Reloading.
If you want to ask for help to go to the audience here,
Well, I like to look at history, looking at technology which dominates. First was the then
Keep burning on!
Then we had the computer revolution, and now we're entering the artificial intelligence era. So we have to educate people on artificial intelligence.
Weapons here!
That's going to dominate our life. It's going to dominate the market, the stock market. It's going to dominate culture. And already people are kind of like sometimes freaking out and sometimes over-exaggerating some of these things. So we have to learn to speak to people's concerns. And the concerns right now is we're entering the age of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will affect jobs, education, it'll affect everything. We have to be able to communicate that to the public so the public is not freaked out. And that's why I think it's important that we understand, first of all, that we're entering the age of artificial intelligence. We have to be able to tell people that this could be useful, it could create jobs, it could make life easier, life more productive, life more efficient. These are the benefits of artificial intelligence.
Would you please cover me?
very timely. AI-related project this year anyways. So that's really good. Thanks for the great leverage of that magic wand. First, I'll go here to one of our guest questions.
Hello, good afternoon, Doctor. Thank you so much for this presentation. That was really illuminating to see that kind of portrait of technology. A lot of the things you described sounds really fantastic, and I really wish them to happen that way to really make our lives better with minimal impact. However, I have to admit I'm a little bit concerned sometimes that technology, we tend to see all the good it could do, and we don't necessarily stop to look at all the externalities and the potential negative impact. For example, a lot of this technology, like those sensors in the bathroom detecting our health, that's great, but we're going to use semiconductors that are going to have a lot of environmental impact. So my question to you is, while all those things sounds great, do we necessarily have to try to maximize as much as we can technology, or would it be sometime better or wiser to take maybe like a pause and to wonder, it's not because we can do something as much as we can, maybe should we do it? Or maybe should we take a broader picture, a more middle way to really benefit the greater good for most people, including all the aspects, including environmental impacts? Thank you.
Well, I think we definitely have to look at the downside of technology, because if we don't, then the politicians come up and monkey around and really make a mess out of things. And that means self-regulation when technologies become too advanced. And so I think, for example, take a look at the movie industry. After the end of every movie, there's a little sign that says, this movie was fake. All the actors are fake. All the dialogue is fake. And you're a chump if you believe it's real, okay? So every movie has a disclaimer, okay? So it's self-policing. The industry does not want governments to police which movies are good, bad. They have a self-policing mechanism. Same thing with freedom of speech. What about freedom of speech? Well, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. There are limits to free speech even, okay? And so I think that the industry has to mature to the point where, yeah, you're competing against the next guy, it's a race against time, and you realize that if you fumble, then the next guy will grab your lunch for you. Yeah, there's that too, but you have to look at the bigger picture too. And that is that unless you begin the process of self-regulation, then the industry gets looked upon adversely by the politicians, and then it's political football. God knows where it's going to go. And or look at the comics code of the 1950s. I still remember the time when people were saying comic books should be banned. This is after World War II, because we're talking about violence. Well, the comic industry created the comics code. There's a little symbol on the comic books saying that, yes, it's been approved by the comics code. And that prevented the government from censoring and regulating the comic book industry. So I think the computer industry is no different. That it's, at a certain point, it's better to be self-regulating than to have politicians do it. Because right now, people...
My name is Sabine Hossenfelder. I'm a...
People want autonomous modernization. Those would be synonyms for the word history. And the end of history didn't signify the termination. The question is, where is that historical progress leading? To what kind of society are we evolving? And, the argument that Hegel made back in the early 19th century was that it would be a liberal state of the sort established first during the French Revolution. But, Karl Marx picked up that idea and said, yes, we're living through history, but the evolution is going to lead to a communist utopia. And, the simple argument that I was making back in 1989 was that it looked like we weren't going to get to that stage, that the final stage would look like a liberal democracy tied to a market economy, because I didn't see any plausible alternatives to that as a higher form of human civilization. Of course, you can have different, historical stages from the past, theocracy and, authoritarian government of various sorts, but none of those, I would argue, would be superior forms of, human social organization. And so that was the basic argument.
Got it. Hegel has also theorized that, at the rate that the masses are not as well educated as the elites, there's a chance or a risk even that, they should not be involved in national politics because it creates a divergence. And we haven't seen that divergence being taken a view of or fixed in the last few decades. Would that be a fair, view?
Well, democratic choice does not always lead to good outcomes. That's clear. I think the big problem with is how do you select alternative systems? If you say that elites ought to run things, how do you select the elites? For the most part, elites are just as self-interested as everyone else in protecting their own privilege and position. And so, how can you develop a governing elite that actually has a broad public interest in mind, as opposed to simply wanting to stay in power to protect themselves and their families? And I think until you answer that question, I think you're going to have to, recognize that the political system needs to be opened up, to broader choice. Now, no democracy ever simply relies on popular will. You have representation in the first place. The governments that are elected are not simply the result of direct. You have a delegation of authority to a group of people that have greater expertise in running a democracy. You have bureaucracies that also basically, contain a lot of expertise. And so every democracy is some mixture of popular choice, combined with some degree of elite control. And I think, that's kind of a system that's evolved over the years. I think with the rise of populist politicians like Donald Trump, you can see that democratic choice sometimes leads to, very poor leaders being elected. Reloading! But I think that's kind of the price that you pay. And really the reason that you have a liberal democracy as opposed to just pure democracy, the liberal part really refers to a system of law, of constitutional checks and balances that prevent a single leader from doing too much damage. And I think you saw that in the case of Trump, that he wanted to do all sorts of things. He wanted to build a border wall against Mexico. He wanted to repeal Obamacare. He wanted to ban all Muslims from traveling to the United States. And he wasn't allowed to do this because we have a judiciary and we have independent, institutions that make it impossible for a single leader to make, really terrible decisions.
Would he have been either the disease or symptom of the democratic recession?
Well, he's both. Obviously polarization has been spreading in American politics for the 20 years preceding his rise. And he wouldn't have risen if he didn't appeal to something in the public. But I do think that he has made some very malign contributions to the decline of democracy. I mean, for example, his claim that Joe Biden did not win the 2020 election. Right? There's no evidence for this at all. It's really his own vanity. He hates the idea that he's a loser, and he just couldn't accept the idea that he lost a free and fair election, and so he's now persuaded millions of his followers that the election was fraudulent. And that's something that I think I can't think of another Republican politician that would do something like that. But Trump, I think, was just a and as a result, I think he's really weakened American democratic institutions.
What gives you the optimism that we're going to be able to get out of democratic recession?
Well, I don't have an optimism in general. I can't tell the future any more than anyone else can. However, I think it's important to understand that as a political system, there's some real disadvantages. Both Russia and China have been putting out some kind of permanent and that they represent the future, that their form of authoritarian decision-making is more effective, it delivers the goods better than democracy does. But I think that if you have a government that does not have those checks and balances, it's capable of making really huge mistakes, and I think we've seen that in the case of both of these countries. In the case of Russia,
that wasn't necessary.
Putin has been isolated, especially during COVID. Images of the round table, with his defense ministers, and he obviously cut himself off from any real knowledge of what was happening in Ukraine, what was happening in his own military. And as a result, I think he made one of the biggest strategic blunders of any leader in a major country that I can think of in my lifetime. And as a result, he destroyed his own army, beating Russia itself. In the case of China, I don't think you have a mistake of similar dimensions, but I think their zero COVID strategy is really crazy. The price that they're paying for keeping the numbers, so low is enormous. It's probably shaving off, 1 or 2 points of GDP growth, which, is hundreds of billions of dollars in the end. And I think that, again, that reflects a decision of one man, Xi Jinping, that is not listening to advice, or really, especially after the 20th Party Congress, has really stripped that system of kind of collective wisdom that, was embodied in the China that had existed prior to his rise.
You've made some bold predictions about what's going to unfold in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
You want to share that?
Well, I think that the Russian army is headed to a defeat there, and I think it'll happen by the end of the winter. The Russian army is highly demoralized. It's run out of equipment. They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with regard to manpower, because so many Russians have been killed in the course of this war. They're talking about, getting close to 100,000 casualties there. Which is many, many more than they lost in the 10 years that they were in Afghanistan. And so I think, the difference in motivation and leadership on the two sides is so great that I do expect that they will be driven out of most of the areas that they occupied, not just since February 24th, but since 2014.
If true, and what you alluded to in the context of China, would those then serve as source of optimism for the world to be able to get out of this democratic recession? If it were to be able to get out, do you see it as something that's going to reshape itself in order to be able to get out?
Well, history is never linear.
Right.
And I think that authoritarian failures sometimes actually lead to even riskier behavior. And so we don't know what people's weapons over here! There's a general fear
Birthday kid here.
He's already begun these civilian and that's always possible. In the case of China, there's speculation that rising powers are the most dangerous, not when they're rising, but when they start to decline. In order to preserve their position, may be willing to take greater risks than they would have been on their way up. But we don't know any of this. This is all complete speculation. So I really hesitate to make any predictions of how things will unfold.
Jockey!
I want to go into your latest book, Liberalism and Its Discontents. You gave
Smoker.
A description of the 3 liberal principles.
Mm-hmm.
Go through it.
Well, they're not principles so much as arguments in favor.
Right.
So the first is pragmatic. Liberalism established in order to manage diversity. It originated in Europe. Europe has been fighting wars for religion for hundreds of years. A lot of early liberals said it's crazy to base doctrine because people aren't going to agree on it. As a result, we need to have a principle of tolerance that people can pursue different visions of liberty. So that's the... I would say but the doctrine of Pancasila, is tolerant.
Reloading.
I mean, it was built around the principle that Indonesia had multiple religions. Zionism was people pursuing these different views. And so, that's the pragmatic argument.
Y'all ready?
Moral argument has to do with individual autonomy. The dignity of and the reason that people are given rights is that people want the basic freedom to decide where to live, what to pursue in terms of their careers, who to marry, what beliefs to express them freely, because freedom of speech is an
Guns here.
Charger!
That ace girlfriend of yours, Nate.
And so respect for individuals, I think, is really important. The final argument is economic argument. Because liberalism protects private property rights to transact, liberal societies have been the most prosperous in human history.
Thanks.
You really couldn't have a modern economic world if you didn't have a liberal economic order in which people are free to trade with people.
Weapons over here.
Different, very different from themselves. You didn't have the protection of property rights if you didn't have basic agreement on the rules under which commerce occurs. So those three arguments, pragmatic, moral, and economic, I think are the justifications.
I want to push on the second and the third. In a couple of chapters of your book, you talk about how autonomy is absolute. And Serge critique towards individuals. Explain that.
Well, I think that people want autonomy because they don't want because But if you say that autonomy for its own sake is more important than substance, what you're using your autonomy for, then I think you begin to undermine the moral purpose. People want to be able to live within a moral framework. Autonomy is usually traditionally understood not choosing yourself from marriage. We can illustrate this more concretely. In the United States, the First Amendment protects freedom of religion. Not freedom from religion, but freedom of religion. Choose to worship
Let's go, Bill.
God you want, without interference from the state, as long as you don't interfere with other people. But there's a more radical interpretation that says you want freedom from religion.
Jockey!
Now I think the freedom to exist within the pre-established boundaries.
Charger!
On the third,
Charger!
with respect to the economic part, I want to try to put this in the context of how you try to draw the difference between liberalism from neoliberalism and also from libertarianism.
Sure. So neoliberalism is used by some people just to designate capitalism as such, and I think that's a mistake because you can't have a modern society without basic protection of property rights and freedom of commerce.
Anyone need some pills?
Neoliberalism, in my view, is more properly used to designate an interpretation of economic liberalism. That interpretation was associated with politicians like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. It appeared in the late 70s and early 80s, saying that the state had become too big and too controlling. It needed to be liberalized, but it was taken to an extreme that basically saw the state as unnecessary in a certain way and an obstacle to economic growth. And as a result, state sectors were cut back across the board, and you had the growth of a kind of unregulated capitalism that knitted together the world in a global economy that was very efficient, but also very disruptive to many existing societies. I think that probably one of the most dramatic effects were the financial crises that hit the world with the liberalization of financial markets. Beginning with the sterling crisis in the early 1990s in Sweden, the Asian financial crisis in 1997 was a direct result of the liberalization of capital markets, then followed by Argentina, Russia, and it culminated in a way in the American subprime crisis in 2003.
Everyone ready?
And this was all the direct result of neoliberal efforts to deregulate financial markets that really needed very strict state supervision. So that is what I regard as neoliberalism, the efforts of the state, not the broad belief in the need for markets and market economies.
I'm in the same camp. Markets, I think, should have been democracy. But it's just a that are being done enough. What do you think?
Well, there have been a number of efforts to make capital more available. I mean, one is the whole microfinance revolution, the Mean Bank, in Bangladesh. But I think that the promise of that is very for growing companies that can survive that initial stage. The real lack, I think, in many countries is SME finance, finance for small and medium-sized enterprises. Large corporations have access to global capital. Family business within various size where they want to expand beyond the family, they want to incorporate themselves and reach broader markets. That's the place where there's a real gap in global financing. It varies from country to country, but I think that's
I mean, even in these developed economies, we're seeing a divergence between the rise of the capital markets versus the rise of the real economy. That in itself, I think, is a manifestation that money and capital hasn't really democratized every area of the economy.
Well, among the neoliberal initiatives, that has been a hallmark of American capitalism. Very strong, as the Buffett chairman after the Clayton that prevented companies from being too large. But one of the arguments that were made by neoliberal economists in the 1980s, Robert Bork and George Siegel, simply because it's more efficient, and therefore we relaxed rules against that. And one of the things that's been going on is that these companies get so large that it's impossible to compete against them. If you're a startup, when you start threatening their market, the buyers incorporate you into their empire. And it's only a regulator, it's only the state that can prevent that from happening. And so that's another consequence that I think has been reinforcing to very large corporations, big banks, global
I want to get back to this, but I want to continue on a little bit on you alluded to the threats towards liberalism that are coming both from the right and the left, but you suggested that they're not symmetrical. Mm-hmm. Explain that.
Well, it depends on the country. I think that right now the biggest new political movements have been on the right. That populist nationalism, Hungary and Poland, India, many European countries have right-wing, extreme right, populist parties have just got into power in Sweden. In other parts of the world, the left-wing populists are still the dominant force. Left-wing governments have actually been in Libya, in Peru, in India, and Chile. That's what I'm talking about. You have one right-wing populist, Jair Bolsonaro, that is, I think, persecuted and using brilliant Left, there's a big difference between right-wing populists and pretty uniformly
Shoot it! Shoot it!
The left-wing populists are still focused on economic inequality. States
Shooting! I hate pigs!
Income and wealth.
Reshaping democracy. What do you think could be done in policy measures on
Well, I think there's a move in that
Shoot the damn tank!
Good shooting.
After these large corporations, President Biden here the problem is that there's less political support for that because you still have a large part of the Republican Party that